Ooh, can you smell that? The smell of street takeover still in the air from last night. Welcome back to Drive Chicago. DriveChicago.com GM Mark Bilek and Chicago Auto Show Marketing Director Jim OBrill drive a lot of cool stuff. So, without further ado, Jim, what is in the spotlight this week?
This week, we're talking about the Genesis GV60, which is their first dedicated electric vehicle that shares components with its cousins that are also built on the eGMP platform, which is the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6. Although the GV60 has a style all of its own that blends both a performance and luxury type of look. Throughout my week driving this car, it was often mistaken for a Bentley by several people, or people just questioning, what is that you're driving? Which also tells me that people still don't know what the Genesis brand is, so they need to do a little bit more marketing out there. But the GV60...
Maybe they should come to the auto show next year.
Yeah, maybe they need to come to the Chicago Auto Show. I don't know, just a tip out there.
There you go. If you're listening out there and you have a Genesis dealer, bring your damn product to the auto show. These guys need you. I love that. It's okay to pitch them.
The GV60 is a 5-passenger compact crossover with kind of a coupe-like roofline. It's available in 3 trims known as Standard, Advanced, and Performance. Standard models are rear-wheel drive and offer 225 horsepower and an estimated 294 miles of range and start right around 52,000. Advanced models are all-wheel drive with 314 horsepower and 248 miles of range. Those ones start just over 60. And then finally, there's the Performance model, which is all-wheel drive, delivers between 429 and 483 horsepower. And there's a range because there's a button in the car called Boost Mode that will give you that extra horsepower. That's the one I got to drive, so we'll talk about Boost Mode in a bit. It has an EPA estimated range of about 235 miles and starts just under 70,000. The GV60 is available in 11 exterior colors, 5 interior colors. It has a bunch of technology, standard driver assist, and fast charging ability. Competition includes vehicles like the Jaguar I-Pace, the Lexus RZ, Mercedes-Benz EQB, Polestar 2, Tesla Model Y, and Volvo XC40 Recharge. So I will say this was a fun vehicle. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that it was something different that people didn't know. It's fun when we get to drive all these different cars and we're taking them to different places. And when it is something a little bit different that you can talk about, there's a lot you can talk about this car, starting with that performance. There's a button on the steering wheel, much like Hyundai has in their N cars, that will allow you to give it a boost. And in an electric vehicle that already has that instant torque, in a car like this, you certainly feel it. It's a throw your head back in the seat, and it boosts it from 429 up to 483 horsepower, which is significant. The boost will last for about 10 seconds before turning off, and then it regenerates for available power, and then you can do it again and try it again. But kind of a fun thing. It is an athletic riding vehicle. It does have that performance feel, much like the Kia EV6 GT and the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. This is kind of up there with that kind of performance, but still refined. I mean, it's a lot of different things. This car even has a drift mode. That I did not try out. I don't know why you want that in a Genesis, but it does have it. So Genesis is clearly targeting a different kind of luxury type of buyer with this car.
You know, Jim, I have to echo your comments. I mean, this is a vehicle that actually kind of makes sense to me in the Genesis lineup. And I'll say why. It's smaller than the similar Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. It's got just basically less cargo space. Passenger space is about the same, but they loaded it up with tech, obviously. I mean, everywhere. It's got fingerprint reader. It's got all this stuff in there. But think about the Genesis lineup. You also have a couple of other electric crossovers that are bigger. So if you're just looking for a very, very luxurious and comfortable and distinctive, I might add, electric vehicle to get around town in and stuff like that, this makes a lot of sense because you're not paying for all that extra space behind that you never use. I think my biggest takeaway from this, though, was a little disappointment in the range. And I know that, you can get decent range in it, but, in press fleets, they constantly give us the most performance model. This one, is at 235. And really, I mean, if you drive it hard, you're looking at 200. And so I don't know I wouldn't put that in my, I think a car should at least get 250 to 300 for an electric car. and this one's not quite there. I guess, Jim, if you drove it very economically, you might be able to get 250.
I did not get to 250 when I had it. I did drive this up to Wisconsin. I will say, certainly better than the Fiat 500e in terms of range, but yeah, it is a little uncomfortable being under 250. But the fast charging works really well in this car, so I was able to stop. Yeah. And you can get from 10 to 80% in around 18 minutes. It's equipped. It works really well. That's not the case for all EVs, but the Genesis, Hyundai, Kia vehicles all do that very well. The other thing you can play with, and this is where it's tricky in EVs when you look at range, because you've got different settings of regenerative braking that can play a factor in your range, how hard you're hitting the gas pedal. There's a lot of different things that come in. But one of the big things with this vehicle, I think, is the tech inside. This comes with a whole electronic active sound design, so you can chime out virtual sounds, which is weird. So if you really want to sound like you're a car from the Jetsons pulling up to the party, this car does it. Or you can turn it off for a completely, silent sound, but it's a little gimmicky and unnatural, but it's there if you want it. When you hop inside, I think one of the first things that you notice in this car is the floating center console with a crystal sphere or an orb, as my kids like to call it, and it lights up. It's got mood lighting, and you kind of like, what does this thing do? Do I hover around it? Like, how does this work? And what it is, it's your gear selector. And so as soon as you turn the car on, it flips over, and you got your dial for selecting gears. It's certainly just a wow factor type of thing, but it wowed the kids, I guess, and their friends. But could also be something else that goes wrong, because if that doesn't actually flip over, you can't you can't shift the car. You're in you got a problem there.
I actually thought the exact same thing, Jim. I was like, well, what if this thing doesn't flip? How do I get going?
Right? Could be a problem. But I will say the rest of the software in this car, the tech, the infotainment system, all works well. They still have not cut the cord for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, so you do need to connect it through there, but it does work well when it's connected. It's got a 17-speaker Bang & Olufsen audio system, so it just feels good inside. It's a nice, modern luxury vehicle, like all the Genesis vehicles I've driven. They have a really nice aesthetic inside. I appreciate the materials they use and the way they lay things out in their vehicles.
I'm really proud of you two guys. And let me tell you why.
Why?
Because if Genesis didn't come to my auto show, I'd never talk about them.
we love all car brands.
We want them all to come to the auto show.
We want them all there.
That's why I'm proud of you guys. You're better than me. All right, Jim, if we want to find out more about the Orb and the Genesis GV60, where do we go?
You can visit drivechicago.com to read the review. You can also check out our social channels or your YouTube channel to see the video, and you can see the actual orb flip in the video.
I think the only sound a Genesis should come with is Phil Collins. On the way, we'll look to the future for Mitsubishi. Jeremy Barnes is the Senior Director of Communications and Events, and he will join us next to highlight their momentum and their 2030 plan. Thanks for checking us out today. We are WLS-AM 890.